All right, so let's look at your ministry just a little bit. Looking into the future of your ministry, your media ministry, online pastor, what is the thing that's got you most fired up about the future of your ministry there at Saddleback?
Well, I think it's just what we talked about. It's just the potential of launching groups using an online stream all around the world. And I think right now we're up to 1,000 groups.
Okay.
And it's just so crazy. That number is unreal. I grew up in a church of about 600. And so to think there's 1,000 small group hosts around the world that are somehow affiliated with Saddleback and that they are wanting to host a group in their home just gets me excited. And I think the future is my hope, Church Online, and we've talked about this a couple of times on Neil Smith and I, who co-hosts the show with me, the socialmedia.church stuff. We talk a lot about this idea that Church Online is not at its ultimate fulfillment. We really don't know what the potential is. We're moving towards something, but my hope is I just want to provide a way for people to experience what a healthy church is about and ultimately come to know Christ and come to live for Christ better. And I think the more we are able to kind of provide an atmosphere for those things to be fostered, if it's through online learning and training tracks and ways to meet up with people locally and grow and spur on campuses, those are the things that get me excited, because I don't want just a stream. I want a community, because just like your worship building is not church, your church is the people doing life with one another. And for us, our Church Online is not our website. Our Church Online is our small groups that are meeting around the world and online. And so I get most excited about small groups starting around the world and the potential of what can happen out of those groups.
Nice. What's the best ministry advice that you've ever received?
Oh, that's I've been fortunate that I've some really good, really great mentors in my life, and I try my hardest not to get too arrogant. I try my hardest to humble myself and listen to them. And I would say, if you don't have somebody a couple years ahead of you that maybe is in a place that they're wiser and you can listen to them. If you don't have something like that, you're going to, I think you're doing something wrong. It's like that Paul Timothy thing. You need somebody that can really call out your stuff, if you're doing something that's wrong, and also somebody you can listen to. A lot of people are good at asking for advice. Not a lot of people are good at listening. And one of the best pieces of advice that, I would say I've gotten from my mentor is just, keeping my family number one in the process, especially for somebody like me that works from home a lot. I think I get that tug of I could always be available, and I am always available. So one of my number one things I always have to do is, when I feel like I'm slacking, I need to just turn off my phone, and just keeping my family number one. And then on top of that, it was, I love the Andy Stanley principle of I can't be something to everybody, but, be something to somebody when I can. Especially in my type of ministry where, I've, thousands of people that watch online, but I only get to touch a handful of them every weekend. And so I try to give my utmost attention. If somebody sends me an email or call, I try to be personal. And just by calling them back, I was calling people this weekend that had made some commitments, and they're like, oh, that's so cool that you're calling me, and that moment of just that kind of bleeds off into other people. And that has allowed the internet can be the most impersonal thing, and I wanted to make it the most personal thing, because obviously I'm trying to bring Christ into this equation. So I think that's, family first, and then that whole idea of just being something to somebody when you can.
So let me make sure I've got this. You gave me 3 pieces of advice. Make sure to have a mentor and listen.
Yeah.
Make your family number one, or make them a priority, and make your ministry personal. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Is that kind of a summary?
That's it. The book that really challenging, and it was challenging for the ministry that I'm over is Eugene Peterson's later book, The Pastor. He had a moment in there, and I didn't agree with everything he said, but there was a moment there he talked about just being personal. And for us, the push that I have, this is why we do small groups, is that we can't be everything to everybody. And this is why, if you come online, no matter where or how, if you sign up to serve, if you sign up to give, I don't care. My first question is, are you part of a church? And if you're not, you need to get into a small group. I don't care where you live. You can't do life alone. And so one of the convictions that I have a lot is, the online kind of can give this feel that I'm promoting people watching just by themselves, but I'm not. I'm trying to get people into groups, and so that idea of being personal is so important to me. So important.
God's taken me through something similar in that, and I wish I could expound on it. But in short, if a person's not in church, there's no way for God to get them into the conflicts they need to grow. It's almost like, part of church is that conflict, that rubbing against each other. And without it, you're just not going to grow near as fast. There's no way. What resource or app, like Planning Center Online, helps you most in your day-to-day ministry?
Oh, the one that I use a lot lately is Asana. So that's a kind of a to-do list app. It's something that I rely heavily off. It's something that people within our team use. But what I like about it is that it has a desktop and an app version, and then I can just kind of, I think like everybody, you're in meetings and things are getting popped off. I can kind of create a to-do, and then what I do is before I sit down to kind of do my tasks, you can drag easily things to number 1, number 2, and so I kind of drag those and I kind of work down from bottom. That allows me to kind of, do things to the prior, that are most important. That's probably the number one thing that I'm using at least day to day that I use.
Now, I use Asana also, very small areas in my life that need that, and you can set up those folders or projects, and that you can organize stuff under that project to a degree. But whenever you're collaborating with a team, can you tag posts so that it collects into an area? Can you do anything like that? Kind of like Slack. I don't know if you've looked at Slack.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, actually, it's so funny that you said Slack because we're trying to move our team to Slack. There was a conversation about that. So I haven't used Slack too much, but I do know that we have an inner group of people that are a little bit more digital natives that we tend to experiment because we have a pretty wide variety of age on our team, and we have a pretty big team, and so we're always trying to figure out what would work. But I like how Slack works. So
I wish Asana, because I use Asana too. I just said I wish I would be able to tag it because, for example, under magazine project, we have 2 or 3 issues that we're working on at a time. And so my wife might send me a video she wants in her magazine and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And so that's where Slack comes in. We can organize it under the issue. So I'm kind of struggling between the two because we got to decide on one. I can't do both. But go ahead.
I think Asana will. I think they will wise up. I feel like they get it. It's hard because I still don't. I get it with. It depends how close knit. It's just like for example, we have people that develop for us in different places in the world, and so like those guys tend to actually just use the chat feature on Skype, because it just tends to be a little bit more standard.
Right.
And so we're trying to move people to a standardized process, but I think I will probably keep with Asana now. But we'll look. I tend to just text right now, but I get it. I don't have a group of people that I rely off regularly. I'm more like their relational connections, so I can just I make a call or I send an email. But if I had a group of people that, maybe I needed, more regular updates, I could see the benefit of Slack for sure. But,
yeah. Okay. We've talked a little bit about this. You talked about your days. What does your typical week look like? You've went over a little bit, but just, give me how many hours a day, when your meetings are, the standard stuff. What does your week look like?
Yeah, so we have every Monday morning at 8:30, we have a spiritual maturity meeting that goes on for an hour. And that's kind of a recap from the weekend, talk about upcoming things that we need to be aware of. And then I have another meeting right after that. It's a small groups pastor meeting, and it's kind of high level stuff. How did people get connected this weekend? Stuff we need to change, planning for upcoming meetings and events, and then that Monday lunch into kind of the afternoon. It's kind of my follow up from the weekend. I do any follow up like this issue. This past weekend we had some technical issues, so I'm tracking down with our team about, hey, what happened? I need to give a report back. And so I kind of do any follow up, any type of like massaging or anything that I need to figure out. And so kind of Mondays is set up that way. Tuesday is I do more of that. I send out a weekly prayer request to our prayer team, and so I do that Tuesday morning. I kind of get ready. I do any last minute email follow up. Kind of Tuesday morning is usually my heavy email. I kind of like catch up on email, follow up, send stuff out, forward stuff out as well on Monday, just forward to different volunteers that are responsible for different care areas. And then I make any calls if needed. And then Tuesday afternoon, we have an all staff meeting that we have every week at 2 p.m. And we do that every week. Usually that's about a 2-hour thing.
And how many people do you have in your staff meeting typically?
We have usually about, I want to say 180.
Okay.
Maybe less. It's hard because we have regional staff and international staff. So here in Southern California, LA is, an hour and a half away. So LA doesn't drive up all the time. We stream our staff meetings. And
Okay.
international as well, they will watch the on demand or watch it live, depending where they're at. Because we have staff in Manila, in Berlin, in Hong Kong, in Buenos Aires. And so those are people that don't always, obviously they can't come. And so they stream it. And so, yeah, so it's a pretty large, we go through just a weekly, it's usually just updates. And then it's primarily training. We do a weekly training of something. So if it's getting ready for something, or one of the pastors come in, if it's Rick or somebody else does a training.
Okay.
And
so
then
that's your 2:00 Tuesday, and it lasts a couple hours. Okay.
yeah, last couple hours, and then at the end of that day, any follow up on email or giving calls
I'm
if
sure
needed.
you're just wasted after that.
Yeah, no,
after the
it
2
can be
hour.
draining. I try to bring a coffee to that. It's great stuff. But it can be draining. And then Wednesday, I have a standing meeting with my direct boss and with somebody else on our team. We do a weekly check-in around 10. And then kind of Wednesday afternoons are usually just meetings about the weekend or any other things I need to do. And then Thursday, Friday are really my time to follow up with volunteers. And then kind of all between Monday and Friday is heavy. I'm building into my core team of 30 volunteers. I'm doing Facebook messaging, but usually Thursday and Friday are kind of I make appointments to meet with people and Skype people and call people or meet up locally. Because I have volunteers online and I also have volunteers that attend locally. And so I kind of do both and usually I do any writing or any preparation. So something I do often is that I do monthly huddles with all my 30 volunteers using the Zoom technology, the conference technology. So I have to plan for that. Sometimes I shoot video updates that I post on our Facebook group. And so Thursday and Friday usually are strategic days that I can kind of get ahead of the curve. And sometimes I have to do stuff for the weekend, depending on if it's going to be a crazy weekend or not. And then Saturday morning, I send a campus email out I send it out every Sunday morning at 11 a.m., but I write it on Saturday morning and schedule it. And that goes out to our entire campus. And then I also I set up some standard emails that I send out to a couple of our groups every week. I send message notes to some small groups that host small little services that get people together. So I send them message notes ahead of time. And I also schedule an email to go out that asks for attendance count for those gatherings. And then we have our two Saturday services are 4 and 6 p.m. And I'm usually there at the 4 p.m. online, making sure everything works. I check Roku and different things. We have a couple other people that check it, but I just make sure notes got up to date, are updated. Everything is good. Because 4 p.m. every Saturday is when the new message starts. It's kind of our re-kick. And so you can have the other message, but about 15 minutes before 4, the new message notes come up and the new service kicks in. And so it's kind of our cleanse. And then Sunday morning, we have a 9 and 11. I'm usually just checking that out. 11 o'clock is the service I attend with my family. And so we go there, and I'm available for that. We have another live at 1, and we have another live at 6. And I'm usually available checking. And then I'm kind of just on the weekend. Generally, what I'm doing is I'm checking email and voice calls, and I'm kind of working with my volunteers that are there if there's any type of urgent thing. So sometimes I do email if it's something urgent, somebody wants a prayer request or had a call, or if a volunteer. But I'm usually just loving on my moderators and I'm following up on urgent stuff like that and kind of being a direct lead. And so that's kind of like a typical week in the sense of my church kind of role.
So be honest, do you have an NBA game up on the TV and checking your email Sunday afternoon?
I Lately I actually have golf up. I'm watching a golf tournament. So usually I do that a lot, because the golf tournaments are what, Thursday through Sunday. So, and so I usually do have that up and I'm checking stuff. But I think that's part of it is, I think, and I think the thing I struggle with is figuring out, an extended amount of Sabbath time, because I think I can always be on.
Right.
And so, I try to, at least I give my wife as much control to tell me when I need to shut down. And so we're actually, part of it is that we've grown so much that we're actually we're in growing pains because we haven't really staffed accordingly. And so part of it is figuring out, okay, how do we do that? How do we support? One role that we're talking about is an online campus producer that can make sure the tech is working and making sure the services go right. Because we actually mix two different audios. The audio that's in the worship center is not the same thing that goes online. There's two different audios. So there's all sorts of things that can go wrong. And so we're trying to figure out some of those growing pains. It's good stuff, but it's growing pains.
Yeah. All right. Well,